eve of her honeymoon.
This beautiful 19-year-old college girl, police believe she was abducted from her college campus.
Oh my gosh, it was so scary.
It's an effort driven by the frantic message Kahn left her sister just moments before she disappeared.
My heart is like pounding. I've never got this feeling in my life.
After a strange man who she says smelled like marijuana says she slapped the suspect and ran away.
She hit him, and then he ran away.
And he left. He was so pissed.
She slapped him. He was really mad after it, and that was the end of it.
Don't know what's happening. You know, if she's out there in the cold, if she's hungry.
We looked at all of the telephonic devices.
Pick up your phones. I am freaked out right now.
We're putting the resources into it as if it was an abduction.
I need my wife back.
And think of Aisha Khan all the time.
And tonight, live, thank you for being with us. Bombshell tonight, live, America's Heartland. A gorgeous young co-ed sits outside studying for exams, literally snatched from her books and papers in broad daylight. And was it practically the eve of her honeymoon? Recently married, planning her honeymoon, now she's gone. We are taking your calls straight out to Dan Verbeck with KCUR, Kansas City. Dan, thank you for being with us.
Yeah, good evening, Nancy. Good to be with you.
So much is emerging, Dan. The story that I've gotten is changing. It's shifting. And Liz, if you could you please show where she was sitting when she was snatched? This young co-ed sitting at a picnic table there in like a quad area. It's my understanding, Dan, it was in the middle of finals. So these classrooms were not full of students and professors as they normally would have been.
It's a very small campus anyway, Nancy. It's a satellite of KU, the University of Kansas, and it's not much of a campus, if you will. It's not teeming as would a normal large campus.
Well, as a matter of fact, there's only about 2,000 students there, everyone on the verge of going home for Christmas break. The reality is there were not a lot of people there, but I also find it very interesting, back to Dan Verbeck with KCUR, that there was a construction crew. Let's take a look at this. Liz, is this one where I can see the construction crew area? There was a construction crew, and various members of the crew who were working say they see a young woman. It's the blue area of that diagram. Let's see it again, please. That they actually observe her walking away. Dan, if it's a homeless person, where's he going to drag her to?
Nancy,
Where? Not his home?
There are no homeless people in that area of an affluent section of the suburb. No homeless around there that anybody's seen.
So that doesn't ring true as well. We've gotten reports that a homeless man approached her, started a fight with her. She slapped him, went and used her phone. We've gotten reports that he was simply intoxicated. But I find it very difficult to fathom, Dan Verbeck. If you take a look at that scenario again, let's see the diagram, Liz. Please leave it up. How she could be dragged by her wrist all the way across campus, kicking and fighting, and nobody sees anything. How did that happen, Dan?
Well, the premise, there are two premises on this one, Nancy, that she was abducted or that she ran away and has just hit the road. And police are working with both of those possibilities. And yes, you're right, 3 construction workers tell police, according to police, that they saw a woman of her description. She's rather distinctive looking, with the head garb and the long,
the hijab,
long coat.
Yes.
And they saw her, they said, walking leisurely across the campus, apparently in no hurry, to go wherever she was going.
All right. We are taking your calls. I want to go to Pat Brown now, criminal profiler, author of The Profiler. Here's the reality. By my analysis, there's 2 scenarios. Either the cops have not adequately performed a search and her body is right there amongst them. Remember Annie Lay and Clark, her attacker? Remember them? Yale University. He killed her in the university, in the laboratories, and stuffed her body in the wall. They didn't find her for days. Hello? There she was, right there. Either they are not adequately searching for her and her body, is there somewhere around campus, or her story was inaccurate. What about it, Pat Brown?
Well, I have the same problems you do, Nancy. I mean, she could have been abducted, but I would think she would have to be taken away in a vehicle. And when she's on the phone giving that message, we hear nothing about a vehicle. Seems a little strange that this kind of sketchy dude was drunk or smoking herb or whatever, suddenly comes back with a vehicle. Maybe these 3 workers, they would have to have a vehicle there. They'd have to all be lying, and they all abducted her if they really saw her. But I go back to that phone message. I personally don't see the terror in her voice. I don't hear her hyperventilating. I don't hear her sounding terrified. She's not running away from anybody. Why are all her things just sitting there nicely on the table? Because if I were her, somebody just did that to me, I'd be grabbing up my stuff and I'd be getting the heck out of there. So I don't understand why there's no sign of an abduction, no sign of a struggle. It bothers me as well.
Also,
but it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
When you look at a scenario, if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. She leaves the message, and before we attribute any elaborate ruse to her, a lie on her part, it's more likely the simple answer is the correct answer, that it was not a ruse, that it did happen the way she said.
It may
have.
Now,
if a man approached me, and a man I didn't know, and accosted me, I would not take the time to call all my friends at work and my family members. I'd call 911 or campus security. But that's just me. All right? So let's take a listen to what Pat Brown is talking about. Let's listen to her calls. This is the co-ed that is apparently snatched in broad daylight as she sits outside studying for an exam.
Oh my gosh, it was so scary. My heart is like pounding. I've never got this scared in my life. And he left and he was so pissed. Pick up your phones. I am freaked out right now. Okay. End of message.
You know what? I understand what you're saying, Pat Brown, but let's go to someone that knows her well. Joining me from Overland Park, for those of you just joining us, a gorgeous young co-ed studying for exams in broad daylight, and what we are told practically on the eve of her honeymoon, vanishes from campus as she sits outside studying at this picnic table. With me is Farouk Sheikh. This is her cousin, Aisha's cousin. Thank you for being with us, Farouk.
Thank you, Nancy. How you doing?
I'm concerned. I'm concerned about Aisha. There's been a lot of speculation, a lot of talk about an arranged marriage, a forced marriage between her and her groom of a few months. Is that true or false?
No, ma'am, that is false. She has known him since they were, very young. He's known to the family. He's part of the extended family network back home in Pakistan. They always liked each other, and there was no forced marriage.
Now wait a minute, Farouk. Remember, you're talking to an all-American here, and
I understand.
People have been calling in, going, "This is a forced marriage. This is an arranged marriage," and what you just described to a lot of Americans kind of sounds like an arranged marriage. Oh, we knew each other from Pakistan. The families knew each other. They always kind of liked each other. Boom, they're married. See, that's not how it works here. Here, you fall in love. Then you get married.
Well,
you don't get put together by your families. So, how did they have a courtship?
They did. They've known each other for a while. Man, look, I'm an all-American. But you know what's beautiful about America is it's a lot of immigrants, and there's multiple cultures here. What's an arranged marriage? In the old days, 100 years ago, my grandfather or great-grandfather probably had an arranged marriage. They never saw their wives or their spouses until the day of the wedding. That happened. It doesn't work like that anymore. Frankly, I had an arranged marriage. But what was my arranged marriage? My parents introduced me, just like a friend would, on a blind date to a girl. And I met her one night over dinner with the family. She called me up a few days later. We went to Starbucks, and we dated, so to speak, for 5 or 6 months, and we got married. I had a courtship. We fell in love, and that's the modern day version of an arranged marriage. It's basically your friends and
I get it. I get it, Farouk. So is that the type of marriage that Aisha had?
Pretty much similar to that, yes. I mean, it was spoken. These kind of things are, culturally speaking, your parents take superiority. You have respect for your elders. Parents speak amongst each other. I think everybody in the family knew they had a liking towards each other. They were communicating with each other. And, he moved here to the United States.
gosh, it was so scary. My heart is like pounding. I've never got this scared in my life.
It's the toughest thing that they've probably ever gone through.
And he left and he was so pissed. Pick up your phones. I am freaked out right now.
You don't know what's happening. You know, if she's out there in the cold, if she's hungry for the last 2 days, if she has clothes or not. Keep us in your prayers.
I'm very thankful to everyone who's helping us, the community, everyone, but I need my wife back.
Welcome back. Where is Aisha Khan, this gorgeous young co-ed studying for exams there at the Edwards Satellite Branch of University of Kansas? She's sitting out at a public park bench there on campus and disappears. You just heard the voicemail she left behind. Back to her cousin, Farouk. Farouk, again, thank you for being with us. You have listened to these messages over and over, I'm sure. Is that the way she would have conveyed hysteria, alarm, fear? What do those voicemails sound like to you?
Well, I've looked through the timelines of what happened, and she basically made 6 calls and left a message in the 6 calls. She called her sister, then she called her cousin, then she called her sister, then her cousin, then her sister, and then her sister again. And there was 9 minutes between the first call and the last call where she left the voicemail. So, you know, if she was panicking at the beginning of that 9 minutes, at the end, you know, I mean, you know, you certainly calm down a little bit. Aisha's a pretty headstrong, strong personality, fun-loving person. She's outspoken. If she feels a certain way, she'd speak up, whether it's to your friends or family. You know, she expresses her opinion very well.
Let me ask you a question. What was she studying? What did she want to be?
I know that day her final was for government affairs. She has an interest in education. She was also working at I think a Montessori-style school part-time to pay for her way through college.
Are you saying Montessori? Is that what you just said?
I'm sorry, say that?
She was working at a Montessori school? Is that what you just said?
She was working at a Montessori-style school. I don't know if it was an official Montessori school. But.
And how far away was she from graduation?
Ma'am, I don't know exactly.
Okay, let me ask you a couple of quick questions. Where was her husband from? Where is he from?
He's from Pakistan.
Where was Aisha born?
Aisha was born in New York, I believe.
In the States. So she was raised in the States. Where was the husband raised?
He was raised in Pakistan.
And how long has he been in the country?
I believe he's been here since about the middle of the year.
The middle of 2011?
2011, yes.
Okay. So when was it that they had their dating relationship? Because if she's been married 5 months and he's been here 6 months, what they dated?
Well, she's actually lived in Pakistan when she was younger. In the last few years, I don't have the exact timeline. I'll get them for you if need be. But she spent a lot of time there. They've been there many times on vacations. Her family is from the northern part of Pakistan. It's not a big city.
So he's been in the country 6 months, and he's been married for 5 months of that time. Was he applying for citizenship?
I don't think you apply for citizenship straight away. If you get married, well, when you get a green card, I came to the United States. I came here as an immigrant. You get a green card, you make an application for citizenship 4 years later.
Okay, Unleash the Lawyers. Joining me is Renee Rockwell, Atlanta defense attorney, joining us today from our Manhattan studios. Also with us, renowned attorney Jason Oceans, who practices in multiple jurisdictions. Along with us and taking your calls is Aisha's cousin, Farouk. Jason Oceans, both you and Renee have also done immigration law. What effect does a marriage have on your status in applying for a visa, green card? First you, Oceans.
Right. Well, assuming you're here legally and then you do marry, you can upgrade your status by notifying INS, and then there's a process of evaluation to determine if the marriage is legitimate or not.
What about it, Renee?
Absolutely. It's a free pass, Nancy, if the marriage is legitimate.
Free pass if the marriage is legitimate. Right now, we're trying to determine where this gorgeous young co-ed is. How Has she been snatched from her college campus? No sign of her as of tonight. Where is Aisha Khan?
You don't know what's happening. You know, if she's out there in the cold, if she's hungry for the last 2 days, if she has clothes or not.
My heart is like pounding. I've never got this scared in my life. And he left and he was so pissed.
We are taking your calls. Where is this young co-ed, Aisha Khan? Now, according to police, she was kidnapped, accosted, taken away while sitting outside studying for her next exam in governmental affairs. Take a look. That's where she was. Construction workers nearby say they saw her sauntering off, but her family says no way. She left 9 messages, over the course of 9 minutes, left multiple messages with sisters and cousins that she had been accosted and was afraid. Are the facts jiving tonight? Out to the lines, Inette in Vermont. Hi, Inette. What's your question, dear?
Yes, I was wondering if the husband's been investigated and if they've checked into the construction workers.
You know, that is an excellent question, especially regarding the construction workers. Why so important, Cheryl McCollum? McCollum, crime analyst, director of the Cold Case Investigative Research Institute. What about it, Cheryl?
They're going to check them out, Nancy. They're even going to offer them polygraphs. They're going to go over their history. They're going to go over their background.
Offer is really the right word. I mean, it ain't an engraved invitation to come on down to the police station and take a polygraph. But come on, construction workers.
Sure.
Right? They go from job to job to job.
They go from job
it's
to
very
job.
hard to find them. And very often, just because the college doesn't know who they are, they're not working for the college, immediately police would focus on them as they would the husband. That's just immediate police procedure.
Standard procedure.
Why, Cheryl?
Well, 90% of the time a woman is missing, her husband or ex-husband or boyfriend or ex-boyfriend has something to do with it. But here, the close proximity, the fact that she left her belongings there, the fact that she made phone calls for over 9 minutes, that doesn't suggest her husband was standing there.
I agree with that. I agree with that. She didn't mention her husband. And back to Farouk. Farouk, isn't it true that the husband absolutely has an alibi for the time she went missing?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the husband, you know, in all these cases, like you said, statistically, somebody may be involved, et cetera, et cetera. You know, this is a very close family. There's a lot of family supporting her.
Hey, Farouk, speaking of it being a close family, did Aisha and her husband, live with their family?
They actually, Aisha and her sister and their 2 husbands live together.
The community members have gotten together at our houses. Anywhere they see us, they stop us and say, hey, listen, how can we help?
This beautiful 19-year-old college girl, police believe she was abducted from her college campus.
Oh my gosh, it was so scary.
It's an effort driven by the frantic message Khan left her sister just moments before she disappeared.
My heart is like pounding. I've never got this scared in my life.
After a strange man who she says smelled like marijuana says she slapped the suspect and ran away.
She hit him, and then he ran away.
And he left and he was so pissed.
She slapped him. He was really mad after, and that was the end of it.
I don't know what's happening. You know, if she's out there in the cold, if she's hungry.
Looked at all of the telephonic devices.
Pick up your phones. I am freaked out right now.
We're putting the resources into it as if it was an abduction.
I need my wife back.
And think of Aisha Khan all the time.
We are taking your calls. Where is this college co-ed, Aisha disappearing as she sits outside studying for a next exam, literally dragged away from books and papers to Karen Stark, psychologist. Other reports are telling us, and the family has denied this, that this was practically the eve of her honeymoon. We've learned a little bit more about the marriage. I'd like for you to weigh in, Karen, and also weigh in on what Pat Brown and I were discussing regarding the tone of these calls made over 9 minutes, 6 calls to various family members. I mean, it's just me. Maybe I'm the crazy one again, but if a guy came up, an unknown male, and accosted me in public and I was afraid, I would call 911. Why call your sister and leave a voicemail? But how people react when they're panicking is a whole nother can of worms.
Well, not only why didn't she call, because I'm sure everybody's asking that question, why didn't she call the police? But there's also her tone of voice, which you mentioned, Nancy, and I don't want to say, because I don't know if she's really missing, it's terrible, but she sounds so light, you know, like I'm scared, like I'm frightened, like that doesn't sound very frightened or panicked to me. And I also wonder about the relationship. Not that I want to get her cousin upset, but here she is with somebody who's not American. She lives with her sister, so there's 2 families under one roof. This is a perfect opportunity for her to run away.
You know, Farouk Sheikh, with us, Aisha's cousin, how do you respond to Stark's allegation that your cousin just took a powder and ran away?
You know, man, we've questioned that ourselves. It's not like we haven't, and you know, we've looked at, you know, her.
Why would she run away, Farouk? What would she run away from?
There is nothing for her to run away from. If she didn't like what she was doing or the situation she was in, she would just change it herself. This is not a situation where she's forced to do things and stuff like that. You know, you got to remember when people get married in our culture or as Muslims. The priest and the witnesses ask permission of the bride first. The bride can reject the groom with absolutely no problem at all, and that is
the bride can reject
critical.
What? What does the bride reject?
The bride either accepts or rejects the groom. That's how it works.
Now, is that done at the wedding ceremony? The rejection or the acceptance?
That is done at the wedding ceremony. Absolutely.
Oh, come on, Farouk, please. I mean, how often, when people have doubts, are they going to say in front of a whole group of family and friends and a priest, for Pete's sake, yeah, I was wrong, I want to run out right now?
But ma'am, she's extremely close to her sister. She's extremely close to her cousin. She's extremely close to a lot of people. She had a very open relationship with them. She never expressed this concern that you're raising ever.
Well, what's raising a red flag for me is that you are saying that your own family questioned, would she have run away? You know, and I'm just putting it out there right now. No way would I ever run away from my twins and my family. No way. I want to run to them. Farouk, are you saying she lived with her sister and her sister's husband as well?
Yes, her and her husband lived with her sister and her sister's husband.
Did she and her husband share the same bedroom?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there any chance she was pregnant?
I don't know if she was pregnant or not. As far as we know, she wasn't pregnant.
Okay. And where was the husband at the time she went missing? I know he's got an alibi, but what is the alibi? I want to nail that down.
I got to be honest. I personally haven't asked him where he was. I know he was with some family or whatever, but I don't know exactly.
All right, we'll get to the bottom of that.
It was
Don't
Friday.
go.
They were going to go.
They were going to go where?
It was Friday. Everybody, typically you go for prayers on Friday afternoon, and he was in that mode, and she had told her mother that morning that she'd meet her at prayers and spend the afternoon with her mom because she'd been studying for the previous few days and weeks and hadn't spent that much time with her mom, and she was looking forward to it, and she'd expressed that to her mother that morning. The other thing I want to quickly say is earlier on, one of your guest experts, and I appreciate everything they're saying, and look, you guys raising these questions are not, if they're normal, and we understand that. But that site, that area is cordoned off on 3 sides with concrete. 2 sides are a concrete wall, 1 side is a building. There's a door that leads into the building from there. She was sitting about 10, 12, 15 feet away from that door. Somebody could have come through there. There's a construction site there with fences. It turns out that there was gaps in these fences. I examined the site on Saturday morning. Right out of that quadrangle area she was sitting in, immediately opposite, there was a gap, a small gap in the fence. If somebody took a left turn where there's virtually no visibility, there's a narrow gap that you can squeeze through quite easily, that somebody can get to the back of the construction site. There's a lot of areas there where, there's a lot of openings there.
Let's bring up the diagram, please, Liz. I want to see that. I want to see what he's talking about. With me is Dr. Bill Mannion, medical examiner, joining us today out of Philly. You know, Dr. Mannion, it was 40 to 41 degrees outside. And to my knowledge, Aisha was not a smoker, but sitting outside to study?
Yeah, it seems a bit odd. And the fact that all of her belongings, in my impression, are neatly there on the bench, picnic bench, and the fact that there's no digs in the ground, no marks in the ground. If he was smoking marijuana, did they find a marijuana cigarette anywhere? I'm with you. Certainly she's a little girl, 5'2", 120 pounds. Someone could have assaulted her, knocked her out, and carried her off, and she wouldn't even have screamed. We have to treat it as the worst scenario initially, but I'm with you. Everything has to be explored, and if she is out there running away, perhaps her family should plead for her to call in, let them know she's safe.
And, you know, I'm also wondering about her cell phone. I don't believe it was left behind, but Dr. Mannion, we see that emerging so many times in missing people, unsolved homicide cases, actually getting pings off the cell phone. And that was left behind, as Dr. Bill Mannion is pointing out, neatly left behind. Is that right, Clark? I believe Mannion's right. Was everything neatly stacked? And what is this about the exam was at noon? What time was she snatched, Clark?
Right, Nancy. Well, this happened around about 11 o'clock, roughly, a.m., and what was left behind was discovered by her sister. When her sister heard this voicemail, she tried to contact Aisha back, could not get a hold of her, and then came back to the college campus, and what she saw was an iPod, a backpack, and a cell phone all left in the area.
Let's take a listen to this emergency call she made. 9 minutes worth of phone calls to sisters and cousins claiming an unknown man accosted her tonight. Where is Aisha?
Oh my gosh, it was so scary. My heart is like pounding. I've never got this scared in my life.